And since it is Women in Horror Month, wanted to pick a very special movie. And for this very special movie, I needed two very particular guests because this is not your usual horror movie. So I said, I don't want to have my usual horror movie guests who are going to spout the same things that I always get. So I've been looking for a winner to get both of these fabulous women on the show. And I found it. I'm so glad they're here. The first of them. She is an actor. She is a writer. She's one of the wisest people that I ever met. I went to college with her, and she taught me so much wisdom that I did not see at the time, but I saw years later. And that's what she is here. I love her so much. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my GNCs, wherever you may be, please welcome to the Scream Queens microphone for the very first time, the fabulous Rory Kelsch.
Oh, my goodness. Hi.
Hi, Rory.
Scream Queen fans. Hi. Hi, Patrick. It's been so long. I've missed you so.
So have I. I missed you as well. Yeah.
We had a thing, didn't we? We were the darlings of the Foy Theater, weren't we?
We were the big fish in the small ocean of Siena College Theater.
That's right.
Oh. And I just realized, well, we have another guest waiting in the wings. This is another person who I did shows with 1,000 years ago, but now she is also an actor, a writer, a mom, she has always been one of the voices. She's been using her voice forever for speaking out and speaking loud about all kinds of discrimination and inclusion and diversity in the theater and the world. If there's a cause, she's speaking out loud and proud about it, and I've always respected the shit out of her for that. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my GNCs, wherever you may be, bow down because you're in the presence of Erin Quill.
Hello, my gays. How are you?
That's the fairy princess right there, the fairy princess.
It is the Fairy Princess. I write for those of you who don't know, I write the blog, The Fairy Princess Diaries, which is, again, for diversity and inclusion. But also, I'm here because I'm Asian. And I said that before, and Patrick laughed. But, Patrick, you want to get into it?
Well, yes, you are here because you're Asian, but also I know that you're the voice of diversity about Asian. And this movie's not just about being Asian; it's about women, and it's got so much more to say about that. It was your doorway in. Take it. This is the show. It's showbiz, honey.
Drug.
Whatever gets your foot in the door. Your foot's in the door. Don't slam it now.
No, it's my gateway drug. Umma is my gateway drug.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's Korean Asian and you're Chinese or half Chinese, she's half Chinese, half Irish. So
yes, but I'm married to a Korean, so it all fits. And I know Sandra,
okay.
So yeah, we're good. I've spent actually quite a lot of time with the Koreans and Korean Americans, so we're good.
Humble name drop. But no, I've just said, like, if there's a cause, if somebody's underrepresented, if somebody's being mistreated in the industry, Erin is out there speaking out proud about it. And I've always admired that about you. I thought you're fearless that way.
Thank you. Wonderful. Yeah. I am fearless that way. You know what? You do have but if you're going to do it for boys and girls out there, just remember the repercussion is you might not work as much as you did before you said a lot of shit about people. Anyway, I mean, they're truth, but anyway.
Wise words.
Fine. Everything's fine.
And of course, one of the reasons that you're both here is that you're both moms, which is something that I don't have. Yeah, I'm a cat dad. That's not the same.
No, it's not the same.
It's not. I realized as I was about to introduce Erin that you two have something in common that I did not realize that you had. I did Godspell with both of you.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Oh, my God. Where did you guys do it?
We did it right after high school in a local church production. I did Joanne. And, Patrick, what did you...
I was All Good Gifts.
You weren't wearing this...
All Good Gifts,
All Good Gifts, right.
We had a cast of 300,000 people.
Oh my God.
We had like the five people who could sing, and then everybody else whose parents didn't want them around for the summer in their hair. And that was the makeup. So my God, a cast of hundreds. But we had a good time.
Oh, that's great. Oh, well, Patrick was our Jesus.
Bland white guy, check. I was a career Jesus for a while there, but nobody cares. Okay, the movie that we are here to talk about today is Umma, directed by Iris K. Shim. All right. Okay, Aaron, since I just saw you a few months ago, I'm going to dump this one on Rory. Rory, we have a little tradition here at Scream Queens. I need you to give me a nice, tight, okay, picture that I'm a movie producer. We're locked in the elevator for 30 seconds. You got 30 seconds to pitch me the plot of Umma and sell me on it. The clock starts now. No pressure.
Oh, okay. So mother and daughter, they keep bees. There's the mother. There's something wrong with the mother. We're not sure what it is yet. She has a thing with electricity. She's afraid of it. She thinks it's going to make her sick. There's something going on with that. I don't quite get the bees yet, but her mother dies. Okay, her mother dies and is sort of haunting her, and they have to do this ceremony in order for the spirit to
and
pass
time
on.
is up. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done.
Really?
Rory,
Okay, great.
Rory, nobody does it well. That's kind of how I do it. Aaron, is there anything that you want to add to that 30 seconds? The clock starts now.
Oh yeah, I would just say Korean moms are crazy. Korean American moms only slightly less crazy. I have a Korean mother-in-law, so I'm gonna, but it's kind of like I would just say Asian moms go crazy even from beyond the grave. That's my elevator pitch.
Done. Well done.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. And sold. Run that thing up. Well done.
Yeah.
Exactly. $10 million.
Okay, one of the reasons that I wanted to cover this movie from the moment I saw it was, first of all, the gatekeepers were out for this in droves. The horror gatekeepers. It's not a horror movie. Blah, 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 blah. Which I find they tend to come out particularly hard whenever there's a woman in the driver's seat. The reason that I picked it is because let me try this again. I was bored for most of the movie the first time through. Up until the end when I said, oh, this is interesting. Because I've noticed this trend now, and this movie was the first movie that I noticed it in, that when women are in the driver's seat, they're coming up with ways to resolve horror movie situations without a full cast bloodbath.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with like what is terrifying to women. We deal with blood every month. So I don't think blood is something that we find very frightening. It's just more like, oh shit, here it comes again. Whereas like true horror, I think, is mental and physical torture. I feel that that's more kind of in keeping with our horror traditions. Like, I don't think Friday the 13th is scary. Like, I don't think any of those, like we used to go to Nightmare on Elm Street movies and laugh. Because it was so ridiculous. It didn't bother me. I was just like, it's a bloodbath, whatever. It's such a male way to deal with horror. Like men are terrified of blood, right? And I think in part because men are terrified of women, straight men anyway, are terrified of women. We bleed every month. We could make them a dad with no warning. There's a lot of repercussions with blood and women and straight men. So, yeah, blood in female-driven horror vehicles is not usually the answer. To me, I mean, I don't know.
No. I like that. That's a side I never thought of before. That's cool. So when I revisited the movie after it came out on Netflix, I said I'd watch it from that different angle. I said, okay, let's not look at this like it's your standard horror movie. I'm like, there's so much going on with small scares and real life scares and real life situations that you don't normally see, and I find it all fascinating. So that's why I picked it. It's why it's been sitting in my queue forever.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I think the gatekeepers were out and drove with this because it was produced by Sam Raimi's production company, and Sam Raimi, of course, did Spider-Man, and I can't think of anything
Warrior
else.
Princess.
Xena Warrior Princess, all this stuff.
Yeah, he does amazing jobs with horror and fantasy.
But yeah, well,
He's
that's
like
where he
kind
came
of
from. Yeah, but he's more what's the word I'm looking for? Mainstream now, but he started with doing The Evil Dead, which was the underground gore fest movie that put him on the map and what he's known for. So people were like, "Oh, it's going to be that," and it's distinctly not that.
No, I think this movie is a lot smarter than that, and I think that one of the things that they touch on, but they don't push too hard, and I think that's another female trait with horror movies, is that the mother's actual biggest fear is her child leaving her. That's her horror, right? So as a mother, she's suffering from generational trauma because her mother had generational trauma. And in a way, this is very uniquely Korean. It's a uniquely Korean story. And here's why. Here's history in like 30 seconds or less. So when Japan started invading Korea, they took, it's an estimated 80,000 women to be sex slaves. And most Americans don't know about this. They were called by the Japanese army the comfort women. Now, revisionists have called them sex slaves, and Japan still in many cases denies it. Although a couple of years ago, somebody in Japan acknowledged that that's actually what happened because a historian was allowed to go through files that had never before been open to him. And he just kind of like wandered and he was like, I'm going to keep these. So what they did was, and there's tons of videos on YouTube if you want to dispute it or talk about it or learn more about it. But from Korea specifically, they took the most women. So they took 80,000 women, let's say, and only 30,000 returned. The others were killed. Now, the women that were returned had been raped multiple times a day for years at a time. And if they hadn't been, sterilized, they had terrible, terrible sexual trauma and problems, right? And this is all documented stuff, by the way. Mm-hmm. And then they went home and they weren't allowed to talk about what had happened to them because it would disgrace their family. Asian families are very, very particular about sexual abuse, about intimacy of any kind. You know, everything is couched in food. Like, are you hungry? That's how your mother says, I love you. So my personal theory is that, you know, sometimes the Koreans are known as kind of like the Irish of Asia, right? They party too hard. They like to get drunk and sing songs. They really like karaoke. They go big. They go loud. And I remember when I got married, that was one of, you know, my husband's family was Korean. My family was Irish and Chinese. And the way my Irish family kind of came to terms with it, because they were bigots, is them saying, well, you know, the Koreans are the Irish of Asia. And I was like, uh-oh. But I was like,
oh shit!
Why am I only learning this now? What is happening? Oh no!
Now a warning.
Oh, no. Like, it's a little late. But my personal theory on like why this is a specifically Korean American story is because yes, they couch the mother's kind of mental trauma in what is now being called fabong, right? Which is a cultural syndrome specific to Korea and Korean immigrants. It's a unique diagnosis, and it's a combination of like depression and alienation and the inability to talk about your feelings. But my personal theory is that only came about relatively recently in the last 25 to 30 years. And that's because those women that suffer that, they were raised by comfort women survivors. They were raised by sexual trauma survivors who had no therapy and no outlet, right? So there's generational trauma in Korean and Korean American culture specifically that Americans do not talk about because it is hideous. And
that
so
is hideous.
as soon as I watched, and I do know Sandra, and I was like, oh, damn, is she going to go there? Because like America really is not ready for the actual horror of what being descended from that kind of trauma can bring you. I felt like, oh, this was like a little bit lighter than how deep it could have gone. But
you're right. It sets the framework of what's there, of why Umma, whose name we never learn. She's just Umma throughout the movie. That Umma is unable to talk about these problems. She doesn't have the ability to speak or address this rage. She doesn't
have the ability to speak. And she doesn't have the ability to like address the fact that her husband, she followed her husband here and then he left her.
Yeah.
And that's another very culturally specific thing. You're not really supposed to talk back to men. And there's plenty of Korean American women out there who'll be like, what are you talking about? But like culturally, throughout history, it is different in America now. And a lot of that Hongbun thing is visited upon Korean Americans who are trying to be American, and then they get depressed because they can't speak to their family, to their male elders or something, and like bridge these generational trauma subjects that are really quite upsetting. So, you know, for me, anyway, that's kind of what it was about. Like, it was about generational trauma. And it wasn't, and you know, Umma, the reason her name is Umma and we never learn her name is because in Korean culture, when you become a mother, you lose your first name. Your name becomes, like, my son is named Liam. So now, if we were in Korea, I would be called Liam's mom.
Oh.
I would no longer be Aaron.
Wow.
I would be Liam's mom.
Wow.
And even in like, his Taekwondo teacher is a very traditional Korean man. So he has never asked me my first name. He just always calls me Liam's mom.
Wow. Wow.
You know, so that's why we don't know who Umma is. That's why, like, there's a lot of cultural specificity in this, and that's because Iris and Sandra and all that. It's actually, like, a lot deeper than I thought they were going to go on that particular aspect of it.
Well,
but that's why Umma is only Umma.
No, it's interesting. I like that they have things in there that will resonate with the audience it's supposed to resonate with, and the rest of us can learn about it through conversations like this. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Because I did not know about any of that, and you know, while I can see, I can see that would be like. I mean, I don't feel like, compared to from what you just told me, not knowing that, it's almost like, well, did they scratch this? They barely scratched the surface of that. But when you know about it, I mean, it's clear. It's clear that this is a psychological thriller drama thing. You know, it made me think a little bit of Get Out, which I loved. I mean, I loved Get Out. That changed everything for me, because I'm not a horror. I was the girl at Therese Esterhazy's house every year, just sweating my balls off, like and because we had to watch the slasher, and if I said anything, I would be like, the biggest dork around. You know, I was just like, no, it's so great. Oh, yeah, I love it. And I didn't sleep. I was terrible. It was awful. And so, but I watched all of them. Happy Birthday to Me. I watched the crappy ones. I watched the good ones. Anyway, so I'm really.
It was the time. You know, that was what our film library was. It was horror.
I would just like to point out that I never did that to Rory. That was not me who was doing that. Surprisingly enough.
No.
Surprisingly enough, that was not me in college. So who knew?
Quasi-adults then. I mean, if I could say, no, thanks, but no thanks. You enjoy.
Yep. Okay. So,
you know.
Yeah. So the way I would have described the movie, like myself, there's three worlds at war here. There's the old world of Korea and Korean traditions. There's the American world that's waiting, and there's this world that Sandra Oh has built for herself. Can you please tell me about who's Amanda? Like, what's this world that she's in?
Oh, are you asking me?
I'm throwing it out to the table. It's a general discussion.
I'll tell you what was confusing for me, if I could just hop in. That conversation. I mean, I understand why the scene was there, but when she gets pissed off at Dermot Mulroney for, you know, she thinks that he's, you know, giving Chris, the daughter's name is Chris. He thinks that he gave her their college application, and she tells this whole story about, I always hated bees, but you know, Chrissy came home from school with this thing, and she just so wanted to, you know, to keep bees, so I did it for her, and I don't even like bees. And I know that there's probably a deeper point to that, kind of, but I still don't understand. Like, I don't know if I understand the whole deal with the bees. Like,
okay. Fair enough. I'm not sure about that either, but I was just like, specifically this world that she's in. She has this Amanda, or sorry, I had her other name. Shuyan. She has managed, because of the generational trauma, because of this stuff that her mother put her through on this farm in the middle of nowhere. She has isolated herself and her daughter completely. They are cut off from the rest of the world because of the abuse that she suffered. Her mother used to torture her with electrical wires, electrical shocks. So now she doesn't allow electricity on the property. She's made up a disease. No, I can't be allowed electricity, so you can't bring it on the property. She's not sick. She's just afraid of it. And she's basically, in the best of intentions, doing the same thing to her daughter what her mother did to her.
Yeah, right.
And this is now it's being doubly threatened, like because her mother has passed away, and this man comes from Korea and just dumps everything, treats her like garbage, expects subservience from her immediately.
Correct. That is a lot of what Asian. That's kind of what happens when you're part of the diaspora, right? So you're always at war with yourself. You have people coming from the point of origin, and they're always telling you you're not enough. And then not only is she not enough as a Korean in his eyes, she has a daughter who is mixed race. I'm mixed race.
Yes.
And that was like super interesting to me, because watching her daughter look at her really befuddled when she mentioned traditions, or she didn't know what the hanbok was, which is the traditional Korean dress. Men and women wear it. It's kind of like a robe. You know, in Japan, they would have the kimono. In China, they have the cheongsam. In Korea, they have the hanbok. You know, it is kind of like to some of the benefit for mixed race people to not get too caught up in cultural specificity. And yet we get chastised all the time for not knowing certain things. So there's like just no winning. Like
right.
it always, and that was another, I was like, oh, see, because she tried to change the game from how she grew up. She created this happy family, happy parents in her life, and they lived on this happy farm, and they have bees, but bees are generally happy and all that kind of stuff. And then when the ashes come, and the uncle comes, and you see the contempt he has for her, that she has failed as a daughter, she has failed as a Korean, she has failed on so many levels. As
a mother, because your daughter doesn't speak Korean. Why doesn't she speak any Korean? Yeah.
Why doesn't she speak any Korean? And the subtext of that is, why doesn't she look Korean enough? Right? That is something that like a lot of Asians have difficulty with, is mixed race people. And the truth is, the mixed race population in the United States is the fastest growing of Asian Americans. So even if you looked at me and you were like, get away, which is like 90% of the Asians I know. Yeah. Not Sandra. Sandra's always been great. But
keep dropping that name, Aaron.
I know. Well, I'm gonna do it.
We're the best of friends. We're like this. No, it's fine. No, it's fine. No, it's fine. I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
The best of friends. We exchange Christmas cards. She's actually more friends with Chill. But because, you know, she, like her having a mixed race daughter specifically in this film, when she very easily could have had a Korean daughter, that's her also taking a step away and not being the perfect Korean or Korean American in this case. And, you know, of course the uncle's going to use that to chastise her with, because he is a hideous person, let's face it. Like he could have come to America and rescued his sister. I mean, his sister was here with no husband, no way to support herself, and like shocking her daughter with electricity. And the uncle's like, what, doing what in Korea? Yeah. You know, he's not.
But that's not his job. Is he lays out the rules? He's like, it's the job of the child to take care of the parent in this world and the next. Not my problem. It was your name. Anyway, so there's that threatening her world. But then there's also, like you said, with the daughter, there's this other world, that the Dermot Mulrooney world, that the bees that they have. Okay, first of all, bees, matriarchal society. That's why I think they're there.
Right. Queen
okay.
bee, right?
Queen bee, right?
They follow the queen.
Oh, okay.
Which is why they're attracted to Umma when she shows up. Like, oh, there's a new queen in town. Yeah, but
right, exactly. Well, yeah.
But it's also this thing that's supposed to bring her and her daughter together. This thing that was just theirs. As she says to then that senior talk of it. She's like, this was something that we were always supposed to do together. This was supposed to keep the daughter here. It's like she's always just thinking about what's going to keep us. This is just ours forever. But now it's been discovered by the honey's been discovered by an influencer online, and now all of a sudden there's a demand for it. So the outside world is calling. This thing that you built to keep this world safe forever and keep money flowing in is now pulling my daughter away. And I do want to, like I said, the daughter wants to go to college, but she's afraid to bring it up because she knows that mom's not going to like this, because mom can't deal with this either world.
Right. And I also think that a lot of immigrant children or children of immigrants have this kind of pressure put on them. Even if they are encouraged to go to college, they are often asked to go to like a local college and live at home and continue to help with the family business and continue to work in the shop. You know, we don't just see it in horror. If you looked at the project Kim's Convenience, the daughter in that is trying to go to college desperately to become a photographer. She's funny, she's smart, she's so talented, and yet her parents are still making her like work in the shop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like I remember I was 12. This is not a great story. I mean, it's fine, but when I was 12, I went over to Australia because my family emigrated to Australia. They're Chinese, but they emigrated to Australia. And my grandparents owned a Chinese restaurant, the fanciest one in town. And they put me to work that summer working behind the bar. I was 12. And then,
yeah.
And I was behind the bar, but like they were like, yeah, you're here, go ahead. And my cousins, which was so odd, they lived there. And they're like, gee, that's funny. Grandma's never asked us to work behind the bar. And I was like, well, she knows I don't drink. Like, I had 3 male cousins. They would have probably cleared that bar.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Wise woman.
yeah, she was smarty. She was a smarty. But like that's the societal.
That's
pressure.
why it was the most successful restaurant, right? Because of decisions like that. And
Exactly,
I'm not, no shade. Yeah.
Yes.
It really was. People still talk about it on these like Facebook groups. They're still like, anybody remember the Lin Nam? So it working in the family business and Korean American business owners, independent business owners, are the largest group of small business owners in the United States. And you have to get your workforce from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
What better way
than your kids? Yeah.
Than your kids, yeah. And so they're going to work in your shop, your liquor store, your Unimart, whatever it is, because that's the tradition.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I enjoyed watching on a rewatch, when I said, okay, readjust your settings for what you're expecting from this movie, I like that for almost the whole movie up until the very, very end, this all could have been happening in her head.
I thought it was.
Well,
I really did. I thought she was just going crazy.
Her episodes that she had, she would. I equated it to like sleepwalking, where she would see the ghost of Umma and then be out, and it's Chris Waker. She would hear Chris screaming, and then the daughter Chris, and then there would be Umma out there. So I didn't. Yeah, I got that. I wasn't sure a lot of times if she was just imagining the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go back to the end.
There comes a point where you go, oh no, this is for real. It's after that the ashes get
right. It's after she spills the ashes.
Disrespects the burial. She gives her a shitty burial, the one thing that she's supposed to do.
Right.
Because Umma says at one point in one of her visitations, she's like, I couldn't live without you, and now I can't die without you either. Do the right thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of familial tropes that get passed down generation to generation, and it is very as soon as she tipped over the ashes, I was like, here we go. I was like, and here we go.
Yeah, and it's after that where
not going to go well.
Yeah, and it's after that that Chris starts seeing things. I'm going, okay, it's not just in her head anymore. This is happening. This is for this is a woman who is raging. And what I find fascinating about this too, what I find a lot happening with women in horror movies, and just way I'm looking at older horror movies as well, it's like looking at when you especially have a woman villain and going, why are they so angry? And just looking at Umma, this is a woman who just was promised everything. She gave up everything. She was a respected dressmaker back in Korea. They said she was fun. She was vibrant. She came to America and now she's in the middle of fucking nowhere on this farm that she hates with a man he's thriving. I'm not. I'm afraid to go outside. I can't learn the language. I'm having trouble. I'm miserable. I'm here all alone. He left me. And it's this rage that the world's not listening to her. I was promised something. It wasn't given to me. Nobody cares. And the world doesn't like to listen to women. The world doesn't like to listen to older women. The world doesn't like to listen to older women who are not from wherever you're from.
Right.
There's so much rage there that's justifiable, and I'm on Umma's side. I feel her rage. I feel it, and that's
it's misogyny times three, right? It's compounded. Everything she feels is compounded because you look back and you see what she had to go through. You know, if she was a respected dressmaker, let's just go from the script. If she was a respected dressmaker in Korea, well, that was a solid living.
Mm-hmm.
That was a solid living. So she would have had money, she would have had prestige, and the more beautiful dresses she made, the more higher class customers she would have had, the more she could have charged. So there was no reason for her to leave Korea except that she was doing what every Korean woman is told to do, which is be a good wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is something that resonates for me too, because I see a lot of Umma in my mom. My mom was very much a product of the 50s. She was made to be a housewife. She wasn't educated. She wasn't supposed to know things. Like, she knew stuff, but she would never act like she knew stuff. She would play dumb. And sometimes she just was dumb. And she would always, like, I could, when I was like having
she wasn't dumb, Patrick. She was smart as a fox.
She was. That's what I'm saying. She was, but she had to play this game. Like, she wasn't educated. That's why she didn't fit in at the Cherry Valley Country Club. She was new money. There was so many things. Like, she was on the ride with my dad, who was a successful businessman. He's jetting all around the country. He's going to all these places. He's in international golf tournaments. She's always stuck at home with us. I was a late baby. She had me at 40. The other three happened in her 20s. Like, she should be done with this by now. And here I am. And I get this. And this is, she drank too. Like, my mother was a secret alcoholic. And I understand all of that now, but I didn't at the time. And one of the scenes that really resonates here with me, there's a scene where Chrissy is sleeping and Sandra Oh goes up and gives her the whole backstory that I just said, the whole thing where she explains what happened with her mom, that this is why she's angry. The world did her wrong. My mom used to do that when she was really drunk. She would come in and start apologizing for shit, and I would play possum like I didn't know. It was one of the most terrifying things. One of the most terrifying things was to walk into the house and realize mom wasn't there anymore. It was somebody. It's her.
Yeah.
And I saw so much of this movie. Because like Sandra Oh has this wonderful quality where she would be able to just like, she would be herself, and you see Umma come in like, oh, there she is. She's gone now. And it's just the slightest little changes in her eyes. I'm going, oh God, you're terrifying. And I know that feeling right when you're staring that in the face. Like, that, it was a gut thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say my mother was a very well-respected ballet dancer, very high level, and traveled the world and did the whole glamour thing before she was married. So she had a lot of experience coming from, and also she was Australian. So, you know, Australians have a certain kind of quality where they can talk to anybody and they can fit in with anybody. And she came over on a scholarship to study with Martha Graham, and she had an accident while she was here. And that's why she kind of got stuck here. She had this accident. She had to stay longer so the doctors could treat her. She was out. She met my dad. They had like a whirlwind romance, and they were married like 3 months later. And my dad was in politics, and he did very well, my dad. You know, we only lived a block over from Patrick.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
We had equally very nice houses, but I think that's why our mothers were friends, because they both had that quality of, this is not the be all end all. Suburbia is not where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, I was just going to say that too.
Right.
My mom never fit in at the country club because she was not smart the way they were smart. She was not involved in their husbands' careers the way she was. She didn't come from a fancy background. She was a girl from Brooklyn, and I think I know from hearing conversations about people had about your mom. Well, that Carmel Quill, she's really headstrong. She doesn't look like us, and she's got her opinion. She's not quiet like the rest of us.
So my mom was a ball buster.
Thank you. That is the word I'm looking for. Your mom took no shit.
She was Chinese. Yeah. She was Chinese Australian, and she really didn't. You know, her degrees in dance would equal to what would be equivalent to a PhD. So she was not backing down for anyone ever. And my dad was an attorney. And he did labor law. So anytime somebody kind of gave her stuff and she came home, he goes, you tell them that, you know, he was very Irish about it. He was very, you know, Irish American, claw your way to the top. He's a cousin of Mike Quill, who started the labor union, you know, the TWA. So, or TW. So, like, they were both extremely strong personalities. And did they fit in where we grew up? No, not really. But they always told the truth, which, by the way, that's not always welcome.
Yes. Go, Rory, go.
No, I will just say that years have taught me nobody works harder, nobody's more disciplined than a dancer. I mean, you do not mess with them. Their time is precious. They're so invested in their body, their instrument, everything they have to do. I mean, you never get a harder worker than a dancer in my book.
Oh, my mother was relentless. I used to shake when I was little because I'd see how hard she worked on whatever, whether it was like a committee she was chairing or something, some charity event. She must have been the chairperson for every charity on Long Island. And I would be like, is that what you're supposed to do as an adult? Oh my God, I don't think I can handle that. Because it was so like, I have 15 copies of this, and this has to go to this one. This has to go to this one. I mean, she was relentless. Yeah. And I do feel like in Umma, there's so much rage, and it's rage that can't go anywhere because it was societal, and that society, even that she's raging against, is gone.
Yeah.
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 And the only person there to take it out of is a child.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just want to add, I mean, like, I've always loved Sandra Oh. I think she's just so unique and so vulnerable in a way that I don't think I've ever seen anybody as vulnerable as her. She really goes there. She gets into trouble, and I love that about all of her performances. But what I really and now that I know so much more, thank you, about this cultural oppression from these comfort women and that whole generational trauma, which thank you for sharing that. I mean, how she lets all of that land in her performance. I just want to add, it's funny. It's like I'm Italian American. I'm Irish and Italian, but on my mother's side, it's all Sicilian American and similar. I mean, my grandmother, when she was 18, I have the picture. I wrote a whole story about it. She told me this, and I remember when she told me, I was very young, and I couldn't believe because nobody had ever, I don't even know if she had ever told anybody before this, but when she was 18 years old, she won a contest. She won this dress design contest, and there's this picture of her. She wore one of those cone hats that like a princess would wear, and this gorgeous gown, and there's a loving cup. This is like 1930. There's a loving cup on the floor, and I go, "What's this?" She goes, "Yeah, I won a contest when I was 8. I won first prize. I could have gone to Paris and studied in a great design house." Her father, my great grandfather, was a real shit.
Right?
Beat up my great grandmother. Locked in. And, she couldn't leave. She had to protect her mother. She had to just, And there was always this, but I want to say, I don't know, I don't want to say it's just an Italian thing, but I've always sensed, the walls kind of go up and they have to be tough, and the food, I mean, give me a break.
Takes days.
But I noticed when did either of you ever watch My Brilliant Friend, the HBO about the Elena Ferrante, the friendship? Anyway, it's not a horror movie, but it's tough to watch only because there's so much normalization of violence against women, and just this oppression of women. Even the women go, I'm fine. Like in this, My Brilliant Friend, the little girl, she gets thrown out of a window by her father. He breaks her arm. The first thing, I mean, it's really good. It's not just all that, but it was on HBO for like a while. Anyway, and the first thing
I'm writing it down. Brilliant Friend.
But My Brilliant Friend. It was a book by Elena Ferrante. Anyway, but that like kind of toughness, what I thought was so beautiful about Sandra's performance is that she really couldn't be tough about this. I mean, it was just affecting her so deeply, deeply, deeply that I didn't know about this other stuff. It makes more sense now because I was like, I mean, I got it, but I was like, I couldn't tell. Like, I kept waiting for Dermot Mulroney to buy it because I was like, is this a whole movie? Like, who's going to get like really slashed up, or the bees are going to just rip them to shreds? Something. I was waiting for something like that, but it makes more sense now that it wasn't ever meant to be something like that at all. You know?
What I like.
Yeah, I think it's like internal horror, right? The internal horror is that
psychological.
You become your mother, and then you will pass on the trauma that you swore to yourself as a little child crying in a corner that you would not do to somebody else. You swore you wouldn't do it to somebody else because you knew how it feels, and then you're sitting there and you pass that on. You do it to your child, and that's kind of like that's I think a mom thing, regardless of background or ethnicity. I think that's one of the kind of most haunting things about women in general is that sometimes we find ourselves doing it and we don't mean to do it.
Yeah.
It's just, we've always had, I'm Gen X, and it is, right. We're all Gen X. And like, from drinking out of the hose in the yard to like falling off your bike and walking yourself 3 miles home because there was nobody to pick you up. Like there's like just a lot of trauma in being raised by people who went through wars, and then instead of talking about it and dealing with it, they were quiet and they didn't say things. Like, I think my husband, who's Korean, his father passed last year in April, and he still is suffering from the trauma because his father went through so much trauma in Korea that he basically just decided to not speak English once he retired. And he would just sit in his chair and watch television, Korean television, and just not have conversations. So we both tried over the years, just so many times, like, Appa, how you feeling? And, we would try it, and he just could not, he wouldn't engage. I think he was honestly like so mentally beaten up by what he had experienced as a young man, because when the Japanese army came into Korea, his family was living in North Korea and they were aristocrats, and they slit his father's throat in front of him, and he was like 3 years old.
Oh my God.
So right. So
wow.
This is what I'm saying about Korea and trauma. There's just an endless amount of trauma that is passed on. And like my mom said to me when we got married, she's like, you have all these pictures we have all the pictures of everybody's weddings. Where's the pictures of Chill's? And I said, Mommy, they don't have them. And she said, why not? And I said, because the Japanese. And she was like, oh God. Like she knew, because she was Chinese, she knew what had happened. I have pictures inherited from my grandmother that like have killed by the Japanese, like written in the back on them.
Wow.
In pencil.
One of the things that I like, there's a short, granted, that's so much stuff to get into, like so many layers of trauma that are written in for people of Korean background who will see these little signs. There is still a short code that's there in certain points. Like the thing that resonated with me was when we first see the tall, which is the mask that is included with the. With the ashes in the suitcase that Umma's delivered it, and her most prized belongings. And when she's explaining to Chris what it is, she says, "This is a tall. It's a treasured family item. Women in my family have worn this for generations. The mask is a grimace." I'm like, so generations of women have worn this as this silent with no mouth. The mouth doesn't, like, I was reading a lot of the talls have jointed jaws so they can talk. This one does not. So this is a silent mouth, a silent grimace. So there was a shortcut visually that I said, okay, I get that there's one of the things, that I also liked about this is that it breaks the rule of Asian horror movies, but also plays right into them. When I was just, I started to do some headcanon, and I was like, wait a minute, why? I said, okay, wait a minute, let me try this again. All right, just today I said, I'm going to pull up a couple of lists of what people think are the 50 best Asian horror movies. And I'm going through the checklist. Every single one of them, the villain is female. Every time it's an avenging spirit, that avenging spirit is female.
Oh, yeah, like Crouching Tiger. Remember the witch in Crouching Tiger?
Yes.
I love that movie. I still don't know what the hell happened.
Every time the villain is a man, Every time the villain was a male, it was a real life killer. But whenever it was a spirit, avenging spirit, it was always a woman. I said, wow, why? If I didn't know anything about Asian culture, I'd say, why are you so afraid of your women? This is why.
Well, I mean, you
thousands of years of oppression and subversion and
thousands of years of oppression, body mutilation, all that kind of stuff. Like, if you look like, so the common theory, right, which of course people are going to yell about, but like, it's basically everybody kind of emigrated from China. So China, if it's the starting point, right, and then everybody kind of spread out. Mm-hmm. And, you look at, the Chinese and like the bound feet, right? And how they used to break the little girl's feet and they bound them together and they would walk on stumps. This is what a bound foot looked like. It looked like your fist with all your fingers curled up and then they'd just bind them. And they had to carry those women everywhere. The reason they wanted it was so that the women wouldn't run away, because only the most beautiful of women had their feet bound like that. So, I mean, if that's kind of one of your, in all the cultures, whether it's Japan or Korea or Vietnam or Laos, the clothing for the women is so binding, whereas the clothing for the men is so free. Yeah. And that's because women have been punished in Asia for generations for being attractive, for being the object of desire. And that's translated down into so many tropes in American entertainment that we, get exhausted by constantly getting clocked for this like exotic lotus bloom kind of trope, right? That now people, almost Asian American and Pacific Islander women are overly reactive sometimes to even the thought of somebody that's an Asian female taking on a negative part that kind of either where the woman is a sex worker or she's some sort of dragon lady. But here's the thing about that. This is why I really enjoyed Umma, is because Asian American and Pacific Islander women should be allowed to be the villain. Right?
Yeah.
Everybody else should be, just let them be. Let the actors choose what they want to do. That's what auditioning is, right? You don't cast yourself, but if you're somebody like Sandra, you can. And she's willing to like take one for the team and be like, okay, I'm not going to be glamorous and beautiful and catching spies in Europe today. Today I'm going to be stuck on a farm somewhere in California. Somewhere in California.
Somewhere flat, ugly, and brown.
On a nameless farm in nameless United States. And I'm going to be haunted by a Korean ghost. Cool. I'm going to have gray hair. I'm going to look scared and traumatized every other minute. But that's where it's at. I do like this movie for that, I think, overall. And I liked how it dealt with generational trauma and all the ways it did. But I do think maybe for a general audience, some of the things would have been missed.
Concur. And clearly it was, because the ratings for this aren't low because people were expecting something else. Like, Umma is not out to destroy the world. She's not out to kill anybody. She just wants to get what she's owed. You are supposed to bury me.
And she doesn't want to be alone.
And she doesn't want to be alone. And she's not. So you mentioned that nobody dies. I love that nobody dies. I want to talk about River because I love River. First of all, I love Dermot Mulroney's character because he's not the male savior. He's not a love interest, and he doesn't come in and save everything at the end. No, he's not there at all. But he has a niece, River, that comes to visit. What I loved about River is so many things. Is that, first of all, I clocked her for death. I'm like, that girl's going to die. You're facilitating my daughter.
I clocked Dermot. I'm like, he's out. I figured going to get him.
But her in particular, you're teaching my daughter too much about the new world. You're luring her away. You're telling her she's pretty. You're telling her she can have friends. Because I also expected, this girl's going to be a bitch. Because in a horror movie, if you introduce that character, that girl's going to be a bitch because you have to have girls fight for no reason. But this character's lovely. She's lovely, and she's encouraging, and she's warm, and she accepts all the weird things about this family. Says, that's actually making you cool, but you need to get out of here.
Right. Yeah. Like, it's like, you're a weirdo, but like, you don't get it. Weirdos are cool. Like that. I think that was, she's kind of the BFF that you want at that age, to give you a little push. And then also she's used as the tool to be like, hey, your mom's like electricity allergy, kind of bullshitty, right? Because she's like, what are you talking about? I've been holding this phone the whole time. Duh. I'm a teenager.
Yeah. And you can't blame. You can't
Sandra didn't burst into flames. You
can't blame Chris because it's not like she can look it up on the internet.
That could have been clearer. I have to say, that whole electricity thing could have been a little bit clearer. Because like in the beginning, she was throwing out a lamp, and then I got convinced she shut that. And that was when the baby was crying. So was that when she shut off the electricity? She decided then to shut off the electricity after the baby cries, and she recalls the. So she had this lamp.
So she can never do this to her daughter. I'm getting rid of all the electricity. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right.
That's what I got from.
That's ringing a bell.
I didn't get that the first time through. Okay, things I don't like about this movie. The darkness is terrible in this. Like the dark filter they're using, it's too much. I get
the lighting is rough.
I get what they're going for because, like, the only time you can see clearly is when there's a candle or when there is lightning. It's just to show how cut off and isolated they were, but it's too much. Like I know how one of my favorite things lately is finding, like, particularly in 70s movies, they knew how to use dark really well. Like it's almost a character.
Yes.
But this was just so dark, I don't know what I'm looking at. So yes, that stuff at the beginning, the first time through, like the whole thing with her abuse with the pre-credit stuff, I didn't get it all. 3 times through, I'm like, oh, now I get it. So the storytelling's a little muddy.
See, I got that right away, but like, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I did get that. When I saw that in the beginning, I was like, oh, she's going to beat her daughter with a lamp. That's what I thought. I didn't clock the electric right away, but I was like, oh, she's going to beat her daughter with a lamp because I've heard stories of that. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, we're setting up an abuse storyline for the childhood. Okay. All right. And I hate to watch it, so I'm like, oh God, don't be so bad. It's bad. Okay.
Fortunately, we're spared that. We never see any of the abuse, so we just hear about it. We get hints of it, which I appreciated.
And I liked with the flashback dialogue that they didn't use a child actor on screen. I like that they just used her voice so that she didn't have to be traumatized by, having to like act that kind of whatever,
One of the other things that really resonated with me was something else in the box. There's her ashes, there's the towel, the mask, and there's the music box. People hate the music box.
Well,
it's sappy, it's corny, it's sentimental. I said that's why it works. That's what they. Okay, tell me about the music box. Tell me what's the big deal with the music box?
That she had a good memory. That's so she has 3 bad things in the suitcase, right? She has the Hambook, which is like a death Hambook. She has the mask, which of course is terrifying. And she has the ashes, which of course are going to be tossed to the side and come back and haunt them. But then she has this chip music box that even through the trauma, she has good memories of. That was probably before the mom was forced to leave Korea. It was probably when she was very little. And then, it's clearly old. It's rusted. It doesn't look like it works anymore. But that was her one good memory. And so, like, with all the other things that are in there, there's this core. And maybe the music box is what she loves most about Umma.
Right. It's something they connected over. And I liked that it was something they connected over that was not religious, that was not traditional, that was just theirs. And yes, it's corny, but that's exactly the kind of thing that you would get from generally like this sentimental thing from your mother that like Mike said, my mom just passed. I've got my stupid sentimental things, some ceramics that she made. It's a Christmas tree. It's dumb, but it's cheap. But you know what? It's from my mom. We made it together. So yeah, that's a great memory attached to that. I love that. My favorite thing though, and it's something they don't even bring up and they don't even point out, but it just plucked at my heartstrings. There's a scene where Chrissy's just passing by and you see Sandra sitting at the piano with the music box trying to plunk out the melody. and you hear how out of tune that piano is. I'm like, that's Umma's piano. That has not been played in 40 years. That is heartbreaking. It's just trying to bridge that gap. I love that. It's a wonderful little moment that they don't call attention to. That it's just magical.
And it's also another example of being a bad Asian, because she should be able to play the piano.
Exactly.
That's our trope, right? That we.
Who just posted a video of that like 2 days ago? That'd be you, Aaron Quill.
Oh, my son plays the piano. I got, my grandmother was a pianist, so we all
I'll
played
never
the
get it. Never.
I know, right?
Look at that honey. I mean, there's so much honey. I mean, they're so good at making all that honey. Yeah. No, I have to say, I watched it twice. I think I got to watch it. I definitely have to watch it again now because, like, I thought the music box kind of threw me. I thought they kind of I thought is that like 11th hour? But now that I realize that piano, see, there was so much internal stuff that I now that I know what you just told me, like, I would almost want to go back in and just try to get more of that fleshed out. You know what I mean? Because it was so.
Yeah, I think
so much was dependent.
Takes a second watch.
Yeah, so much was dependent on Sandra's performance, which was amazing, as I said. But there's a lot of info there that I think. I don't know. I think it would do to just add more of that for context. Although I have to say, I really love the beginning with all those shots of old Korea and the people moving and stuff. So it was there. I just don't know if we would have to reconfigure it. I don't know.
Thank you for bringing that up. On my second watch through, those still images that are popping up during the opening credits, I said
wonderful.
Wonderful. But when I got this, I was like, okay, because I wrote it down this time. I realized now it's Umma's journey through life, but it's like it starts off with all Korean stuff. He's seeing women in the traditional masks, the traditional dresses, the masks at the temple, funeral urns, but the music is sinister and strange. You go, oh, look at I don't know what's going on. Look at they're doing some sort of ritual. This was going to be the scary thing that comes later, but then it shifts into here's the American farm, the dusty farm, and the windmills and the beehives. And I'm going, if I was from the other culture, I'd be looking at the American stuff going, God, that's awful. There's nothing there. There's no people. Where are the people? Where are the plants? Yeah. Where's the green? Where's the pageantry? Everything's square and boring. That it's just this war of cultures right from the beginning that, depending on where you're sitting, each side looks strange, without a judgment call from the film. I mean, I think, film at all.
And 90% of American culture that deals with Asians from different parts of Asia, that's even for example, Good Morning Vietnam, right? He goes from an American army base, all of a sudden he's in Vietnam, and it's like, oh, everything's moving, everything's, the architecture is different, all that. That's like the easiest way to show people that it has this difference. The ceremonies and everything, they are not now there's a big Christian contingent amongst Koreans, but back in the day that wasn't true. And that's why they have the older ceremonies, they're from Buddhism and Taoism and all that kind of stuff. And the honoring your ancestors, that's heck, we see it in Mulan, it's, Right. So that, the concept that we talk to our ancestors and that we keep their picture and we give them food for their afterlife journey, that's a very common concept throughout all of Asia. And we see that in so many different things. So that she would not give her mom the rest of the ceremony. Yeah, that would mess you up as a mother, even if you were a really, really, really bad mother, which clearly Umma was.
Yeah.
She's still going to need a headstone and some oranges and some incense.
I love at the end too, in a normal horror movie, when it's the final battle between Sandra and Umma, she would be some CGI nightmare monster. And she's not. She's just an old woman sitting in a chair looking very...
Yes, that was very moving. That was very, very moving.
I love that.
It's a horror movie to make. I know it is. But it is. I mean, it's an emotional horror movie and it's a psychological horror movie, and that counts. I love that we went for an emotional way to defeat your villain, who's not a villain.
Yeah, it's I think that maybe it is a very female-centric point of view in that once you understand what your mother went through, truly understand.
It took her saying, it had to take her saying.
You can find it in, you have to forgive her. She has to forgive you.
I know now. I didn't know then, but now I know what you went through. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, but you have to go now. I'm going to give you the respect that you deserve, but you don't belong here anymore.
Yeah.
And for both of them to come to that, yes, that's the way this movie had to end. And and it was through that bonding of the music box.
The ceremony.
The
music box.
Because that's what she's like. When we first hear about it, Sandra remembers the memory that when her mother said, "This was my old music box. Whenever you play it, if you feel sad, you open it and you play it, and it'll make you feel better." When we go back to it's that final battle scene, we see Sandra with the music box, but she's hearing it differently when she's giving it to her mother. It's like, "Hi, Mommy, remember when you gave this to me and you said that when you were sad, you could play the music? Maybe you could play it now and you could be happy again." So there was that moment that they understood each other. Like this is one of those, with all the battles at that point, that moment in time, they were on the same plane. Hey, remember this? I get you. Remember this moment? We were okay then.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And now I'm a grown up now, and I know what you went through, and I know the pain. I'm sorry nobody heard you, but I hear you now. I'm sorry that everybody was awful for you. Yeah, go.
Yeah, she had to reckon with her inner child, and kind of deal with the trauma that was visited upon her, both physical abuse and mental abuse. Nobody isolates themselves on a farm if everything was great in their childhood.
No.
Right.
No.
And that's showbiz, kids.
And even before, just leading up into that scene, they had just did a mini version of that with Chris and Amanda. When she's coming, she's full Umma now. She's got the mask on and she's bearing down on Chris. She's like, no. Hold on. What did she say? I'll have it written down somewhere. She's like, "Oh, I remember when I used to. No, you're not her. You used to, when I have nightmares, you used to come and used to sing to me, and we used to do this, and there were all these good." And then she kicked the mask off her, and then all of a sudden she was herself again. She's like, "Okay." They had some shared emotional memory for a second, and she goes and deals with her mom. It's like, okay, now that I know how to get her out of me, I got to get her out of the picture completely.
But you have to think, if Umma inherited that mask through her family, then that mask has like maybe 1,000 years of trauma behind it. Because, So it is, you would need to crush that mask, because otherwise it's not probably just Umma. It's like Umma's Umma and Umma's Umma.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of Umma.
Well, it's like they enjoy that club, right? They go, I see you and you're my daughter, and then I think back to my mother, and we are all steps in time. That's what they say in the Enjoy That Club. Like, if I have a daughter and you have a daughter, and we are all steps in time. And I think that that's a very kind of Asian-centric concept that, in America, we're lucky if we know, like, the 2 generations back, because they left, right? But in Asia and different parts of the world, we know quite far back, at least until like war came to the area we were, and then we have to leave. So, but I did think that Tal was really, I was like, uh-oh. When I saw that, I was like, oh, here we go. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just going to put on the mask, and everything's going to go bad. Everything's going to go so bad. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw.
I did it.
Go.
Yeah.
You go.
No, I did appreciate that. I appreciated the whatever you call them, the flashes of Umma and the robe and the mask, and then you see her in the window. Whatever, that always works. Like Amityville Horror, like the pig in the window. Like that's just it's you can't lose. You can't lose with some scary crap in a window.
A silhouette in a window will do it.
Okay. Sidebar. One of my favorite memories is Rory Kelch doing the imitation of the puking nun from the Amityville Horror.
No, wait a minute. That's The Exorcist, right?
No, it was the Amityville Horror, the puking nun. I remember we watched it, and like the next, she was like, "We watched the Amityville Horror. My favorite part was the puking nun." Blam.
Oh, I thought Well, this would be.
There's
this
puking
would be
in the
me.
Exorcist.
This is the thing that I would totally confuse too, because I have never watched The Exorcist in full because I can't.
Understandable.
And I always thought that the nun that puked was in The Exorcist, because that would be when I'd stop watching it. I go, okay, or the dog. There was a German Shepherd in the distance, and I go, I'm out.
That's
I'm
the
out.
Omen. That's they're just all messed together.
That's Damien. That's Damien.
But you know what? That's fine. They're all.
That's the devil child.
I could watch The Omen. I remember because I loved Lee Remick. I could watch that, but I couldn't watch The Exorcist. And I remember I'd be like, "It's coming, it's coming." I'm out. And
I remember. So this, you'll appreciate this. So Patrick being a late baby, right? I have another friend. I won't mention his name, but he is also a late baby, and so his brother was a teenager when one of these. When one of these like big horror movies, when The Omen came out, he was like 3 or 4.
Sorry, hold on. Roy, late baby means like my mom had me late. She was 40 when she had me.
Change of life baby. Oh, okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah, a late in life baby,
or an oops in Catholic.
So, yeah, or like
didn't think I could do that anymore. Please continue. Yeah,
right. So, his brother was like 10, 12 years older than him, and took him as like a 5 or 6 year old to see The Omen.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
And my poor little friend, who's now a grown ass adult, had to go into therapy immediately because he saw The Omen at too young an age. If that doesn't sum up like Gen X in one, one experience,
absolutely.
what does?
and that story reminded me of something. My mom and her best friend Bernie McGarliff. Oh, the story's about Bernie McGarliff, but we're not gonna. She's one of the old friends from Floral Park. She's from the American Legion. She's not one of your fancy Garden City friends.
Oh.
Bernie McGarliff and her snuck off to the movies. They said they were going to church. They didn't go to church. They went to see Rosemary's Baby while she was pregnant with me. This explains me.
Oh yeah.
But do you know my uncle is a producer on Rosemary's Baby?
Name drop Aaron Quelly.
Oh,
No, he's dead. It doesn't mean,
No, that's fabulous.
Like
That's fabulous.
He died when I was in high school, but he was what they called I forget what the term is, like a rescue producer. Like it was if it was in danger of not finishing filming, they would send him in and he would like whip everybody into shape and finish it. And Rosemary's Baby is one of the ones that he specifically worked on. But he did like Across 110th Street and this miniseries Chiefs that he won an Emmy for.
But
like all these kind of
just saying that story out loud made me realize that my mother and her friend had to lie to their husbands about going to a movie.
Bad Catholics.
Yeah.
And I remember she told that story to me when I was a teenager, and she told it in a whisper. Don't tell anybody, because it's 20 years later, and you're going to get in trouble for it. Yes, she would have. Yeah,
she would have. Your dad would have been like, "I can't."
Jesus Christ, Lil.
Jesus, Lil, you have to go off.
And he's supposed to be at the church. Of course, why wasn't my dad at the church? He wasn't expected to go to church because he's the dad. Whatever. Yeah. Exactly.
My dad was the one that wanted to go to church. My mother was very against organized religion. So she'd be like, "Go ahead. That was the deal I made, that the kids would be raised Catholic." If I heard one more time, I agreed to it when we first got married. She's like, I'm sorry.
Life is about compromise.
You marry an Irish guy, there's a lot of compromise.
Oh my God! Wow.
A lot of compromise.
Okay.
Yeah. The men.
We've done it a roundabout way, but I think we've done Umma. Because the story is simple, but we've talked about so much. I think we've covered everything I want to talk about in different ways I wanted to talk about, and that's exactly why I had you on, because you're not my usual guest, and you're going to approach the movie in different ways. I loved all this. Just since another story, since I think you both appreciate this, because I know you're both backgrounds. The other, a few years ago, I was walking through Times Square on a Friday night with but it's really crowded. there's an Irish bar there. They have a live band, and they had the speakers blasting out into the streets. And they're playing the Wild Rover.
Oh, yeah.
And it got to the part where it's no, nay, never.
Nay,
I'd say
never.
exactly 20% of the people on the street, like in my view, all did that. The other 80% were like, "What happened? What happened?"
Yeah.
It was
I
just
used
this,
to tour with Patty Noonan.
this group Pavlovian response. It was fabulous.
You know, you can't fight it. It's a catchy tune, you know?
No.
It's catchy.
It was a catchy tune.
God love the Irish.
Even people who, even if people don't know any other Irish song, they know that, and then they know Danny Boy.
Right.
I used to tour with Patty Noonan, so I was his Irish singer, and and then he'd bring in the big dogs from Ireland and stuff, and he'd always introduce me. He goes, "Oh no, here's a lovely little Irish girl from Long Island," and then I'd come out and I'd be like, "Surprise!" But
it's great.
No Nay Never would be one of the ones I would sing.
Atta girl.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yep.
So before we wrap things up, where can people find out more about you? Or do you have anything you would like to promote? Anything going on that's exciting? Okay.
Well,
Why was that?
I'll-
Okay.
No, Rory, go first.
Okay. Well, I just actually I co-host and co-produce this little storytelling venture with a good friend of mine. Her name's Kathleen McKitty Harris. She's a wonderful writer, essayist, and her works appeared in the New York Times and all kinds of stuff. But we do this thing up here in Ridgewood in our hometown. It's called What's Your Story? And it's a little bit like a moth, but there's no competition. We just sort of get writers. You don't necessarily have to be a writer. You could be a performer. You could be someone who just really has a great story to tell, get up in front of people, and, you know, we get audiences together. But we're doing a fundraiser for the Ridgewood Historical Society the end of this month. So that's a lot of fun. We're trying to get more exposure for our little storytelling event here. And, you know, I'm jumping back into the showbiz pool after like a 13-year hiatus, but you know, it's fun. I miss the hustle like crazy. I mean, and I can't hustle like I used to, even though I didn't know how to hustle back then. But because I've got I've got a senior and a freshman, and life's crazy. But
Can I hustle tomorrow?
Yeah, I know. It's good to be busy. It's good to be moving forward after some crazy times. I'm sure you agree, even though it's still crazy. It'll always be crazy, but you know.
I wanted to ask about something. One of your credits that I found that sounded interesting to me, the anthology you're included in, the I Am Strength.
Yes.
It had a great.
Yes. Oh well, yeah.
It was I Am Strength : something amazing, and I can't remember what was after the colon, but it was something great. It was a great title.
Yes, I have an essay. In fact, I'm so glad you brought that up. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but that story I just told you about my grandmother winning that dress design contest. That's a story I had published in this anthology. It came out in, I want to say, is it 2018 or 19? I have to look. It's called I Am Strength, True Stories About Everyday, True Stories About Everyday Superwomen. And it was published by Blind Faith Books, and marvelous stories. There's one by Martha Frankel. There's a lot of different writers, and there's poems and stuff. It's a really, really great book. Yeah, so that was the fun thing that happened, and just writing, acting, storytelling, momming it, across the river in Jersey. I've been here 14 years. I can't believe it.
Creeps up on you.
Because you live in Parsippany, New Jersey.
You live in Parsippany. Oh wait, we got to be careful.
We'll talk about that after we stop recording. That was a side. That was a tangent. We don't need to go down right now. Eric Quill, what's going on with you? Where can people find out more about you?
Well, I am going to be on Law and Order SVU relatively soon because I just shot it 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
I have a film that I was just cast in. It's sort of like a Renaissance-y film. That's coming up, and it's shooting in the next 2 months. I think it's like about a Ren fair. I haven't read the whole script, I'll be honest. And but I'm shooting that. Huzzah! Exactly. I actually did a Renaissance Fair, a Ren Fair musical that Nell Benjamin and Larry O'Keefe did in December. That was all about like the huzzah, like just from nowhere, and it was so brilliant and funny. I really hope that it continues into like a bigger project because it was so delightful.
Fingers crossed.
I have the book Rise. History of Asian Americans from the 90s to now, where I have a section that I wrote on the musical Miss Saigon. And then there's a book called Theatrical Blogging, The Emergence of a Critical Culture. And I have one of my blog posts that went viral and helped almost shut down the Welsh Opera. That's in there.
Almost doesn't count. Shut it down.
I know. Well, and I feel slightly guilty because I am Welsh. But
and if not else, you should be following Erin on Instagram. She's got a very, very active Instagram. Her videos are great.
And I stayed on Twitter because I'm never the person to leave when somebody's like, you all should really leave. I'm like, that's when I dig my heels and I'm like, absolutely not. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. Elon Musk. So, so my liberal ass voice is still on Twitter. So it's @equill. And that's it, really. That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for coming to talk about this crazy little movie. Thank you for celebrating Women in Horror Month with me. And thank you for being fabulous. So, till we meet again, stay safe, stay healthy, stay fabulous.
Thank you. I love being here with you both. It was great.
And we're
enlightening, wonderful.
It was a good time.
That was a good time. Just something you said, Erin, about not being the person to leave. That was my mom's big trait too. She did not like to be told to leave ever. And when her time was coming, she had this brain bleed, and they moved her to a hospital, and they said she's not going to stay the night. She's not going to make it through the night. 2 weeks later, she's still there. I'm like, that's so on brand for my mom. She's like, I'm not going. I'm still here.
Listen, my dad was on hospice.
All brand to the end. Yeah.
3 times he was, and each time they were like, well, he's going to be just keep him, whatever, keep him comfortable. And then all of a sudden, like a couple of weeks later, he was in there sitting up having breakfast, and the woman came in and she was like, hi, Mr. Quill. And he goes, hi, how you doing? She's like, yeah, you're off hospice. 3 times. 3
Amazing.
times.
The boy who cried hospice. Oh, well. All right.
Oh my God.
Irish goodbye was never quite the same again.
Stubborn motherfuckers. All right. Thank you very much. Have a very great Saturday night. I got to go get some dinner. This will be out in 2 weeks.
Okay, great.
Mwah.
Very exciting. Bye.
Big man.